The Avonlea School was a whitewashed building, low in the eaves and wide in the windows, furnished inside with comfortable, substantial, old-fashioned desks that opened and shut and were carved all over their lids with the initials and hieroglyphics of 3 generations of schoolchildren. The schoolhouse was set back from the road, and behind it was a dusky fir wood and a brook where all the children put their bottles of milk in the morning to keep cool and sweet until dinner hour. Anne of Green Gables, by Lucy Maud Montgomery, Chapter 15. Marilla had seen Anne start off to school on the 1st of September with many secret misgivings. Anne was such an odd girl. How would she get on with the other children? And how on earth would she ever manage to hold her tongue during school hours? Things that went better than Marilla feared, however. Anne came home that evening in high spirits. I think I'm going to like school here. I don't think much of the master, though. He's all the time curling his mustache and making eyes at Prissy Andrews. Tilly Bolter says the master is dead, gone on her. And Shirley, don't you let me hear you talk about your teacher in that way again. That is something I won't encourage. I hope you're a good girl. Indeed I was. It wasn't so hard as you might imagine either. I sit with Diana. Her seat is right by the window, and we can look down to the lake of shining waters. There are a lot of nice girls in school, and we had scrumptious fun playing at dinner. Of course, I like Diana best, and always will. I adore Diana. I cannot ever live without her. But I know very well when we grow up that Diana will get married and go away and leave me. And oh, what breaking heart hid beneath my smiling face. And then, bidding Diana goodbye. I'm dreadfully far behind the others. I feel that that's kind of a disgrace. There's not one of them that has an imagination as I have. And I soon found that out. We had reading and geography and Canadian history and dictation today. Mr. Phillips said my spelling was disgraceful, and he held up my slate so that everybody could see it all marked over. I felt so mortified, Marilla. Dewey Gillis gave me an apple, and Tilly Bolter let me wear her bead ring all the afternoon. And oh, Marilla, Jane Andrews told me that Minnie McPherson told her that she heard Prissy Andrews tell Sarah Gillis that I had a very pretty nose. Marilla, that is the first compliment I have ever had in my life. You can't imagine what a strange feeling it gave. Marilla, have I really a pretty nose? I know you'll tell me the truth. Your nose is well enough. That was 3 weeks ago, and all had gone smoothly so far. And now, this crisp September morning, Anne and Diana were tripping blithely down the birch path, 2 of the happiest girls in Avonlea. I guess Gilbert Blythe will be in school today. He's been visiting his cousins over in New Brunswick all summer, and he only came home Saturday night. He's awfully handsome, and he teases the girls something terrible. He just torments our lives out. You'll have Gilbert in your class after this. And he's used to being head of his class, I can tell you. He's only in the 4th book, although he's nearly 14. You won't find it so easy to keep ahead after this, Anne. Oh, I'm glad. I couldn't really feel proud of keeping ahead of little boys and girls of just 9 or 10. I got up yesterday spelling ebullition. Josie Pye was ahead, and mind you, she peeked in her book. Mr. Phillips didn't see her. He was looking at Prissy Andrews. I did. I just swept her a look of freezing scorn, and she got as red as a beet, spelled it wrong after all. Those Pye girls are cheats all round. Gertie Pye actually went to put her milk bottle in my place in the brook yesterday. Did you ever? I don't speak to her now. That's Gilbert Blythe sitting across the aisle from you, Anne. Just look at him. and see if you don't think he's handsome. Anne looked accordingly. She had a good chance to do so, for the said Gilbert Blythe was absorbed in stealthily pinning the long yellow braid of Ruby Gillis to the back of her seat. He was a tall boy, with curly brown hair, roguish hazel eyes, and a mouth twisted into a teasing smile. Presently, Ruby Gillis started up to take a sum to the master. She fell back into her seat with a little shriek, believing her hair was pulled out by its roots. Everybody looked at her, and Mr. Phillips glared so sternly that Ruby began to cry. Gilbert had whisked the pen out of sight, and was studying his history with the soberest face in the world. But when the commotion subsided, he looked at Anne and winked with inexpressible drollery. I think your Gilbert Blythe is handsome, but I think he's very bold. He has good manners to wink at a strange girl. But it was not until the afternoon that things really began to happen. Mr. Phillips was back in the corner explaining a problem in algebra to Prissy Andrews. The rest of the scholars were doing pretty much as they pleased. Gilbert Blythe was trying to make Anne Shirley look at him, and failing utterly, because Anne was at that moment totally oblivious, not only to the very existence of Gilbert Blythe, but of every other scholar in Avonlea School itself, with her eyes fixed on the lake of shining waters. Anne! 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 Carrots! Oh! You mean hateful boy! How dare you! Avonlea School always enjoyed a scene. This was an especially enjoyable one. Diana gasped. Ruby Gillis, who was inclined to be hysterical, began to cry. Mr. Phillips stalked down the aisle and heavily laid his hand on Anne's shoulder. Anne Shirley, what does this mean? It was my fault, Mr. Phillips. I teased her. I am sorry to see a pupil of mine displaying such a temper and such a vindictive spirit. Anne, go and stand on the platform in front of the blackboard for the rest of the afternoon. Anne Shirley has a very bad temper. Anne Shirley must learn to control her temper. Anne stood there the rest of the afternoon with that legend above her. She did not cry or hang her head. Anger was still too hard in her heart for that, and it sustained her amid all her agony of humiliation. As for Gilbert Blythe, she would never look at him again. She would never speak to him. When school got out, Anne marched to her desk, ostentatiously took out everything therein, books and writing tablet, pen and ink, testament and arithmetic, and piled them all neatly on her cracked slate. What are you taking those things home for, Anne? I'm not coming back to school anymore. Will Marilla let you stay home? She'll have to. I'll never go to school to that man again. Oh, Anne, I do think you're mean. I really do. Mr. Phillips will make me sit with that horrid Gertie Pye. I know he will. Do come back, Anne. I'd do almost anything in the world for you, Diana. I'd let myself be torn limb from limb if it would do you any good. But I can't do this. So please don't ask it. You harrow up my very soul. I will never forgive Gilbert Blythe. And Mr. Phillips spelled my name without an E, too. The iron has entered into my soul. Gilbert Blythe has hurt my feelings excruciatingly. Oh. Nothing moved Anne in the least. Her mind was made up. She would not go to school to Mr. Phillips again. Thank you.